Hi, today we're going to find the derivative f prime of x of the following function f of x equals negative 1/3 x plus 2. Now as we get started, let's just realize that we already know the answer. The answer is negative 1/3. Remember, a linear function has a constant slope, a constant derivative. Nothing's changing, okay? I mean, if we look at the graph of that following function, we know the y-intercept's 2, going down 1 over 3, and we know that that is a slope of negative 1/3, okay? And so that's our derivative. Our answer is going to be that. It remains constant, it doesn't change. So, well, let's follow through the definition of derivative in order to get this. So f prime of x, please remember to write that, equals the limit as delta x approaches 0 of f of x plus delta x minus f of x all over delta x. Obviously, most students skip this step, but I'd recommend writing it down until you really have it memorized, okay? It just stays in your head. So the limit as delta x approaches 0 of, so we're going to insert x plus delta x into the function. So we're going to have negative 1/3 times the quantity x plus delta x, close that quantity, plus 2. And then remember, I'm going to subtract the entire function. So minus the quantity negative 1/3 x plus 2. Remember your parentheses. Remember them, okay? And remember the delta x stays on the bottom. So we're going to distribute that negative 1/3. We're also going to distribute the negative throughout this quantity. So what I'm going to have is negative 1/3 x plus, negative 1/3 delta x. That 2's just hanging out, he's fine. And then we're going to have a plus 1/3 x minus 2, and remember that delta x. That's why we're doing this, okay? If this guy wasn't down here, this wouldn't be a problem, okay? We would just simply do a direct substitution. So now what we realize is that we have a couple terms that reduce out or cancel out in this case. And this should be what happens every time, okay? You should have only delta x terms left. Typically we would factor those out, but in this case we don't have to. We can see that anything divided by itself is 1, so these reduce out. And I get the answer of negative 1/3. Okay, let me highlight this by showing that this is going to stay the same for any linear function, okay? Sorry, folks. Any linear function, okay? Y equals mx plus b. You've been familiar with this since the beginnings of Algebra 1. This is my slope. This is my change in x, okay? Or my change in how the function's working. My answer is going to be m, okay? It does not matter. So I'm going to say f prime of x equals the limit as delta x approaches 0 of f of, remember we're going to put x plus delta x in there. Let me just quickly write it. So the limit as delta x approaches 0 of m times the quantity x plus delta x plus b minus parentheses, okay, minus the whole function f of x. If you don't do those parentheses, things don't go away, and you should catch your mistake at that point. So when we distribute that m, we get mx plus m delta x plus b minus the mx minus b all over delta x. So realize once again, everything other than your delta x term should go away. And in this case you can see A lot of people would skip that step, and that's okay, but you're going to see that this equals m, okay? So remember that as you do the work. You should know the answer before you get started.